it's a pleasure to be talking together. Thanks for taking the time to being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Barry. It's good to be here. It's a great day. Hectic last couple of months, but I'm glad to be talking to you right from the
Sounds
beginning.
sounds excellent. If you're good with it, I'd like to veer into what perhaps might be viewed as a dissimilar content compared to most interviews you've done in the past.
Sure.
Primarily, the two subjects I'd like you to share your thoughts are on how to best survive the upcoming global turmoil, and secondly, the importance of having a well rounded plan B. Whether it's on our drscapes.com site or our recently released sister site, somethingfeelswrong.com, our readers consistently find accurate to the ground, on the ground information on both these imperative to understand subjects. I'm excited to hear your thoughts, so with that in mind, you ready to go with the first question?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's rock and roll.
Excellent. On both our sites, we consistently stress the importance of having a well balanced, flexible plan B. After being in 100 and over, actually, after being in over 100 countries and actually living in six, various personal experiences have taught me a flexible plan B is a must, and it must include some sort of documented backed exit strategy. Several well recognized occurrences in the past have proven expatriation can represent the best option if violence becomes uncontrollable. History will only prove this time and time to be correct. V, share your views on the importance of having a well thought out plan B, and what are some of the key points you feel should be included within it?
Well, that's a greght question. I think it's a very loaded question. So I'm going to try and unpack it and unbox it as best as I can. First things first, Barry. I think history has shown us very clearly that having a plan B is not something that should be an afterthought. It should be, yeah, absolutely essential for every single person that's living in the developed world. I mean, what we consider to be, quote unquote, the developed world, um, developed nations and civilization is something that is really a thin veneer that can rapidly deteriorate and go from paradise to peril rather quickly. Now, again, historically, we've seen this happen in Nazi Germany. We see this happen in Soviet Russia and communist China and all other despotic areas throughout the world, throughout history, that those who are not prepared tend to become the victims. Okay, and those who are prepared are not only able to survive and thrive, but are also able to leverage the situation for their benefit. Okay, in terms of a well-situated prep, and it's pretty interesting as I speak to you about this because majority of Americans have no clue what offshoring is. They have no idea what a Plan B location should look like, what it should be. Whereas the rest of the world, many, when I talk to clients from Asia, when I talk to clients from the Middle East, and or even in some cases even Europe, they have an idea of offshoring. They have an idea of Plan B. In fact, most of the world that are industrious typically have some sort of an offshore account. Okay, so it's absolutely vital because when things deteriorate and when you look at the economic statistics in the United States, we are absolutely heading for an implosion. We are, people always ask me all the time, Barry, hey, when's the collapse happening, B? When is the collapse happening? And the issue, the thing that people need to understand is not when it's happening, it's that it's already happened. We've been collapsing since 2009. We've been on life support. We've been we're like the body, the patient being rolled into the ER. Our vitals are crashing, and it's only through heroic intervention that we even have a pulse. So look at that. You can see that analogy how it is today, where economically it's nothing but heroic intervention that's keeping us afloat and keeping this economy going. They can't do those those accounting gymnastics forever. They can't do the market manipulation forever. So it's absolutely vital. So one of the things that people need to do is, number one, have some sort of a backup banking system. Do something offshore. And I understand that there are many locales in the world that allow, that if you try to open up a secondary bank account, you got to, go through FATCA, this, that, and the other. But there are still a handful of places in the world where you can get by with that. So it is important to have have an offshore account. Secondly, it's important to position yourself in a place where it's tranquil, stable government. Nothing too chaotic. A nation that has good resources, good weather, and then plant yourself there. Get some sort of a residency status going. Get a passport program going. Whatever it needs, whatever you need to do to get yourself set up, have that done. And once because the key is to get out of the way before the crap hits the fan and escape. And then, if you want to, you can come back from a position of power and leverage the situation to your advantage. That's always the smart thing to do.
Hmm. Hmm. I wanted to expand a bit. You did mention a second passport. It's a fact throughout history. Owning a second passport is one of the most effective ways of personal protection. For any of the viewers that might have been wondering what I previously meant when I used the term documented exit strategy, owning a second passport would be viewed as one form of it. I was floored to find out, though, V, that less than 50% of Americans even own an American passport. During explosive conditions like revolution, martial law, or all-out war, mobility is often a lifesaver. So here's my second question. How would you rank the importance of owning a second passport, and why are such a vast majority, particularly of U.S. citizens, seemingly clueless when it comes to understanding the urgency of that fact?
Americans suffer not only from a normalcy bias. Okay, they have a cognitive dissonance. They have a complete mental disconnect as to, what is going on outside in the broader scale of not only their village and or town or county or state or their even country, but what's going on internationally and how that affects them at their local level. They have no clue of that. Their minds cannot stretch to that limit because they're too busy. Okay, they're too busy, you know, uh, running the house. They're too busy, taking care of household expenses. They're too busy raising kids. They're too busy watching football. They're too busy shopping. They're too busy partying. They're too busy drinking. This is what's going on. So we have this mental disconnect. So, and they're under this preconceived notion, this false narrative, this false hope that, hey, you know what? It will never happen in America. Everything will be fine, and we will once again go through the anything that will happen because everything's a cycle, and we'll always be number one. And that's not the case. When you look at all the metrics, you look at the real numbers. We've been in decline for quite some time right now. So, yeah, it doesn't behoove me. It doesn't surprise me that
Hmm.
that Americans do not. Majority of Americans don't even have a passport, let alone even knowledge of having a secondary passport. I mean, honestly, man, sad to say, I live in one of the most dumbest countries on planet Earth. I really do. In terms of the industrialized world, I've never met so many idiots in my life.
Do you, just to add on to that, bro, is it? Do you notice it changing a little bit? You see, I haven't been in America since 85, 1985.
You're not missing anything.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll maybe come out here sometime and we'll show you a good time for a week or something. But
Yeah.
seriously, dude, do you notice it changing a little bit? And I have to rely on people I talk to for information. I can
Yeah.
fill you in about this country, but all the survival questions about I get from America or this country, if I don't live there, I don't know. But do you see it changing, guy?
I mean, there is a an awakening occurring. I think that's anywhere between 1 to 3% of the population, maybe a little bit more. Who knows? But there is an awakening. People are getting sick of the status quo, and I think this election cycle has really put a light upon that issue. And guys like Donald Trump is clearly the symptomatic reaction to a much greater problem. He is the embodiment of all that anger that the American public has towards the establishment. He is the epitome of that, and he's symbolic in that regard. So yeah, there is an awakening going on thanks to guys like Trump and heck even Sanders when he came on board. You can see that there was a massive push away from establishment, away from the status quo. So there is a change going on in that regard. In terms of media, in terms of information, the alternative media is winning in the United States. When you look at the approval rating for mainstream media right now, I think it's at 6% or less approval rating for mainstream media. So, pretty exciting stuff, man. It really is.
From your understanding about the numerous different directions in which the future may unfold, considering the following few points. The threat of war is spreading rapidly. Perhaps worse is even the present lack of force I call NATO. The never-ending jobs program some prefer to call terrorism. The second job program some prefer to call the U.S. military, which is swallowing 56% of the GNP of the country. Demoralization, random violence, not to even mention the crumbling economies of the world. With so many potential black swans, and adding to that your personal thoughts of how you see things panning out, I'm sure many of my viewers would like to know the following. In the U.S., if things get really uncontrollable, have you personally thought of an expatriation as expatriation as an option?
Absolutely, 1,000%. I one of the locales that I'm vested in is Panama. That's one of the locations that I like. I mean, I have clients that are in DR in the Dominican Republic as well. So people are looking at the Caribbean. People are looking at Central as well as South America. But again, not everywhere in Central and South America is ideal. You don't want to pick up and leave and move to Venezuela. That's not something you'd want to do. So
You know an interesting thing about that, though, because I have quite a few subscribers from Venezuela, and when you translate from their Spanish to English,
yeah.
they really want to know in the broken English, how come they don't tell about us? I'm talking about my people that live in the farm belts. They're not missing food one iota. It's everything you
No.
hear is about Caracas.
Yeah, it is. Everything is centered around Caracas and the major cities. Um, because when you look at those nations, people that are in farms, people that are in the rural countryside, they are much more self-sufficient. So these currency hikes don't really affect them the way they do in like the major cities like Caracas, where it's so totally socialized, where everything's handed to them. So when the mechanism that hands them the stuff no longer functions, people panic. Yeah.
Another area of survival deals with financial survival. Financial institutions in several other nations have multiple advantages gained by using them. A much higher cash reserve of up to 20% is not considered uncommon. Superior interests on CDs and other forms of accounts, plus they tend to have vast amounts of experience when dealing with various currencies of the world, so it makes offshore banking a thing to consider. While doing some research for a prior post, and as hard as this is going to be to grasp, 0.03 of Americans own a foreign bank account. 0.03%.
Yep.
By a
Yep.
wide margin, like you said earlier, this ranks the lowest percentage of any developed nation. What would happen if currency controls were to come into effect? How is it so that so many of them are missing this in a developed nation, this safety net that comes with owning a foreign bank account? And here's the fourth question. In a nation that seemingly ranks itself first, how can it be that such a small percentage of its citizens realize the importance of owning a foreign bank account?
Yeah. Well, again, it's the American normalcy bias, number one, and the dollar is forever, and the American economy will go on in perpetual, and that is just nonsense. It is important not only to have a foreign offshore bank account, but you need to you need to have something set up that is completely outside of any sort of banking system to begin with. That's why I'm a huge proponent of the LBMA certified gold or good delivery system for gold and silver. Okay, which is basically you have a system between vaulting companies, refiners, brokers. This is held outside of the Good Delivery Network. Is basically something that everybody should be involved in it if you can get into it, because it allows you to keep your wealth in precious metals, okay, outside of the banking system, vaulted in the correct jurisdictions that is outside of U.S. authority, okay, and it gives you liquidity. So if you got 100,000 sitting in gold and you need to liquidate 10, 20 grand because you have an emergency, if you're in the right setup, in the right system, it can be done in 24 hours. If you need deliverability of the gold, they can deliver it directly to your front door anywhere in the world. And when you divest or when you want to liquidate, you can liquidate in the currency of your choosing in the bank account of your choice. So this is all vital to the strategy. So not only do you want to set up something offshore, but you want to make sure you have an offshore hard asset account to go along with your offshore bank account. It's vital. It's necessary. It is foolhardy to think otherwise, that you could be vested in one currency or paper to begin with, which will be toxic and all paper currencies will be affected with what is going to come. So you want to be in hard assets right now.
V, you're promoting that when your clients are somewhat on the, let's say, innocent side of that kind of subject. Are you going out of your way and really promoting that to them to get them on board, or making your best attempt to get them on board to understanding this?
Every single person that I talk to that has the means to do it, I urge them to do it. Okay, it's vital. I've done it for myself. Every single one of my clients that I work with, they're all in the same type of system where they have an offshore account, they have an offshore asset protected trust, offshore corporations, they own an offshore gold fund that's in the LBMA good delivery system,
Mm-hmm.
which is free from any third party counter risk, and it's not held by the banks. It's outside the banking system, and it's the most strict and stringent system in the world. Okay, so it's something that's much more of a better strategy for those that have the means to do it. Better than going to Jimmy John's Coin and Carry and getting a whole bunch of silver and gold and sitting on it, and that's not a smart thing to do, especially if you have societal chaos and what's going to happen to your silver and gold when somebody comes breaking in through your door. You know,
Mm, mm, yeah.
so these are the strategies people need to have.